Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm thrilled because today we are going to be talking about antagonists. And I'm excited about this because previously in the last episode, I had said that next we would be talking about my actual outlining process. But I completely forgot that I had not even considered who exactly my antagonist was going to be. Kind of had an idea in the back of my mind, but I had done nothing to write down who they were, how they were going to be working against the protagonist. And so I was like, oh my gosh, can't even talk about outlining and what's going to happen in the story until I consider who exactly the antagonist is. So that is what we are going to be talking about today. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Welcome to the Fiction Refinery podcast. I'm Jennifer, a writer and developmental editor, and I'm here to share my writing process as I work on the first book that I intend to publish. I'm going to be sharing the lessons that I'm learning along the way and the insights that we can borrow from best-selling books and fellow writers. Grab your favorite hot beverage and let's dive into today's episode. I have never been particularly rigid or structured when it comes to developing my antagonists. And I wanted to try something a little bit different for this story. So because of that, I read Writing About Villains by Rayne Hall. I don't know if you have read the book or not, or if you've heard of Rayne Hall. I really liked her book on pacing. I found it to be very actionable and really helpful. So I liked that book. So I thought I would go ahead and give this one a try as well. As with the book on pacing, I found this one to be really actionable too. And I thought that it at least gave me a great foundation to start thinking about my antagonist. So the primary antagonist that I'm going to have for this story is going to be the Evil Overlord archetype. In Hall's book, she lists, I think it's like 10, sorry. She lists 10 villain archetypes. And these were very interesting. I found them to be very helpful, at least as a starting place for my villain. And quite honestly, without even realizing it, the antagonist, I keep calling him a villain because the book is titled Writing About Villains, but I just wanted to be very clear. This is an antagonist. Villains can obviously be antagonists, but not all antagonists are villains. So I just wanted to be really clear what exactly I'm talking about. So the antagonists that I had in my mind automatically fit into the Evil Overlord archetype that she lays out. If you're interested in learning more about the archetypes, I highly recommend going and checking out her book. If you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, it is included in that. So for me, in the story that I'm thinking about, the stakes are going to be pretty high. For my particular story, the protagonist's goal is to save her sister. And the reason that she has to save her sister is because there is a monarch who is persecuting those who have magic. I'm working on another story goal. It's another thing that I'm testing out for this story. There's so many things that I'm testing this go around, but I'm going to make that in the next episode. I read a book. I'll go over it in the next one, and they included something that I want to try. So that's what I'm going to be testing out, and I'll have more on that in the next episode. But there's going to be a plot line that involves how she has to use, in this instance, magic to save those who have magic. It's not enough that she just saves her sister. There's going to be a bigger goal as well. Although she doesn't exactly realize that is her goal, but her saving her sister will tie in to this bigger goal. Anyways, it's very difficult to explain without sharing more details, but I want to do an entire episode on that. So I don't want to talk anymore about it. Because of that goal, I knew that the primary antagonist in this story was going to be the monarch, because that's really evil. And clearly, if his goal is to obtain power and obtain power by taking it from others, then he just is naturally the primary antagonist. Now, he's not going to be the only antagonist. in this story. I do want to mention that. But let's quickly go over what exactly this antagonist archetype is, or the villain archetype is. So he's motivated by power and control. He wants to keep and grow his empire. He is a long-term planner. He looks at the big picture and considers years into the future. He is very strategic in the choices that he makes. He is okay with waiting for gratification. That being said, it is easy for him to make quick decisions. One thing that Hall mentioned about this archetype, which I don't really have for this particular character, is that she mentions that this archetype is either really supposed to come from like a humble position, like an illegitimate son, or was a hero who rose to power and was then corrupted. I'm not sure that I want him to be a hero who rose to power and was then corrupted. And I'm not sure how to work in that he came from some sort of humble position. He was in the line of succession. So I'm still considering that and considering if that portion of the archetype that she has laid out is something that I would like to try and include, or if it's something that I'm going to just disregard. I think that the reason that she sets it up like this is to try and make the villain not evil for evil's sake. So I understand why she suggests this and why she puts this here for the archetype, because it does make them feel human, a little bit less just evil for the sake of being evil. And I can appreciate that. I want to show some sort of corruption for this character, but I'm not sure that it'll be quite hero status. But he will definitely be making some choices when he comes into power that are not aligned with what was expected from him. Anyways, I digress. And I think that's how I'm going to try and make him not so evil for evil's sake, but we will see. I have more thinking to do on that. And that's perfectly fine because right now I'm just trying to get to the outlining portion, so I just need to have an idea of who my antagonist is. Now, I want to talk about the secondary antagonist because this is fun. There is another villain archetype that Hall includes in her book, and that is the fanatic. This, and I'm quoting her here, this villain is motivated by deeply held, often religious convictions, end quote. I'm excited about this because there is going to be a religious aspect to the persecution. That's not really why the king is doing it, but it is what he uses to convince everybody else that it's a good idea. And he's going to be using, I think, a fanatic to do that. So the fanatic is going to likely be the head of the church or some prominent figure in the church. And they're going to use religion to justify why magic is being outlawed and those with magic are being persecuted. They're going to use religion and fear to encourage people to turn their loved ones in, turn their neighbors in. And that is all I have so far for that particular archetype. That's all I know. He's a secondary antagonist, not the primary, but he'll also be considered one of the Evil Overlord's minions. This guy, I think, is going to fully believe in what he is doing. Now, the primary antagonist is doing it for power, and he's just using the fanatic's strongly held religious beliefs to get what he wants. And I have not decided if I'm going to have a tertiary antagonist for the romantic subplot, but I am considering it. I'm going to just mention it for now so that you can see why exactly I'm thinking about it and so that you can hear what I'm thinking about, why I'm considering it, but I may not include it. And I'm not going to make a decision on this until probably after the outlining. I think it'll become pretty clear if this would be helpful or just way too much when I go through the outlining process. So another villain archetype that Hall has in her book is the seductress. and am considering having her be a minion for the Evil Overlord, and also in love with the love interest. And she's trying to seduce him while his relationship with the protagonist is trying to develop. So like I said, I'm not 100% sure. Now that I've outlined the archetypes, it's time to talk about the goal and the motivation for at least the primary antagonist. His goal is really clear cut. He wants to be the most powerful person in the world. Now, this motivation may change, but at the moment, I'm considering it having to do with perhaps his brothers picking on him as children because he is different in some way. I have not decided what that difference might be, but I like making it personal and about his brothers, as his brother plays a large role in the story. So that is what I'm thinking of for that. Now, personally, I don't really like to stop at motivation. I want to consider what is also at stake for him if he does not, and I want what's at stake to be more than just his ego. There is the possibility for an impending conflict or something like that he is trying to ensure that he and his country can withstand. So that's what I'm thinking of potential stakes for him. That is all I wanted to share today. I honestly can't believe I forgot to even consider exactly who the antagonist was going to be. I think with having just a general archetype, goal, motivation, and then a potential stake for him really just helps round him out, at least for the outlining process. I can go into more detail before I start writing. I can get a clearer picture of exactly who the antagonist is and how the secondary antagonist and the tertiary antagonist fit in to the story. But for now, I definitely just wanted to make sure I had a basic outline for the primary antagonist. And I hope that you do check out Writing About Villains by Rayne Hall. It's a short, quick read, and it's very actionable, and there's a lot of steps in there that I have not taken for my antagonist as of yet, but that I may come back to when it actually comes time for me to sit down and consider who exactly the antagonist is. So definitely give it a check out. I will link it up in the show notes. And as always, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next episode, which is still not quite outlining because I'm surprised by the number of things that I forgot. So next we will be talking about, I was going to tell you what we were going to talk about next, but I'm going to keep it a surprise because there might even be something else that should come before, but we'll find out. But do know that in either the next episode or two, we will be talking about a supernatural story goal. And I'll be sharing exactly which writing craft book I got this idea from and why I'm considering it for this project. Anyways, thanks again for hanging out with me today, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Fiction Refinery podcast. Writing does not have to be a solitary journey. We are in this together. And if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you subscribed and shared it with another writer who might need it. And as always, if you want more content like this, then be sure to subscribe to my newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, happy writing.